And what do you mean live snakes? Where? In her checked-in baggage? All right.
Airport customs officers have seen it all. Things that will shock, disgust, and leave you questioning humanity. From snakes wriggling in suitcases to drugs hidden inside fake baby bumps, the creativity of smugglers knows no bounds. These horrifying discoveries often expose the darker side of human behavior, where greed and desperation collide. In this list, we uncover 9 of the most disturbing items ever confiscated at airport customs, showcasing the unbelievable lengths people go to bypass security and break the law.
Shanghai customs officials recently found 121 endangered snakes in a suitcase.
Number 9. 121 endangered snakes in stockings and plastic containers. Customs officers at the airport in Shanghai were conducting routine checks when something unusual appeared on the X-ray screen. A suitcase belonging to a man was flagged for further inspection. The officers pulled the bag aside and asked the passenger to open it. What they found left them shocked, a sight they had never seen before. Inside the suitcase were several plastic containers, but that was not the strange part. Upon closer inspection, the officers saw something moving inside. They carefully opened the containers and, to their disbelief, found 121 live ball pythons stuffed into black stockings and packed tightly.
We opened the case and found transparent plastic boxes containing black stockings with something stuffed inside them. They were living snakes.
These snakes, which are small and non-venomous, are known for their unique behavior of curling into a ball when they feel threatened. Unfortunately, this very behavior made them an easy target for smugglers to trap and transport. The man initially claimed that the snakes were just toys, but the officers quickly discovered otherwise. The ball pythons were alive, and their cramped, suffocating conditions inside the stockings had endangered their lives. These snakes were part of an illegal wildlife smuggling operation. The officers learned that the passenger had transported the snakes from Seattle to Hong Kong by air cargo. After picking them up in Hong Kong, he planned to bring them to Shanghai, likely intending to sell them on the black market. Ball pythons have become a popular choice in the illegal pet trade. Their docile nature and small size make them desirable for exotic pet owners. However, these snakes are considered endangered and are protected under international wildlife trade laws, specifically the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, CITES. Smuggling them is a serious crime, not only because it threatens the species, but also because it causes significant harm to the animals during transport. The conditions in which the snakes were found were horrific. Stuffed into stockings and packed into plastic containers with no ventilation, the snakes were deprived of air, space, and water. Many of them were on the brink of death due to stress and dehydration. It was only because of the customs officers' vigilance that the snakes were rescued in time. This case highlights the ugly truth about wildlife trafficking. Smugglers often treat living creatures as objects, ignoring the immense suffering they cause. The rescued snakes were handed over to authorities, who ensured they were cared for and rehabilitated. Wildlife trafficking is a global issue, and cases like this remind us of the importance of protecting our planet's biodiversity. Without strict enforcement of laws and the dedication of customs officers, more animals would fall victim to these cruel and illegal practices. Number 8. Rotten fish crawling with maggots. At an Australian airport, border officials flagged a woman traveling to Vietnam for further inspection. She looked like an ordinary passenger, but something about her story didn't add up. She claimed she was on a 6-week holiday, funded partly by her boyfriend in Vietnam.
Go Vietnam, Thailand, go Thailand for day holiday.
Holiday? Okay.
However, the officers were skeptical. How could someone living on a small pension afford such a long trip, traveling in style no less? Their suspicions grew when her luggage was sent through the X-ray scanner. What they found was both disgusting and alarming. The woman's suitcase contained a large stash of seafood. At first, this seemed harmless.
It's not frozen.
Yeah.
It's raw.
After all, people often carry food items when traveling. However, there was something unusual about this seafood. The officers noticed that it was not frozen, and an overpowering stench made them dig deeper. Upon closer inspection, they discovered that the fish was rotten and crawling with maggots. This shocking sight made the situation far more serious than they had expected. The officers didn't stop there. They suspected the seafood might be part of an attempt to smuggle drugs, as criminals often use strong-smelling items to mask illegal substances. They conducted thorough tests on the fish to check for traces of or other drugs.
Is a chemical test for precursors. I expect the substance to turn a purpley colour.
Despite the alarming state of the food, the tests came back clean. There were no drugs hidden in the fish. However, this didn't mean the woman was off the hook. The seafood was deemed unsafe and contaminated. The maggots crawling over the fish presented serious health risks, raising concerns about biosecurity. Australia has strict regulations to prevent the entry of harmful items that could damage its ecosystems or spread diseases. As a result, the officers confiscated the fish immediately. The woman's travel plans were thrown into chaos, as she was left without the gift she had claimed was meant for a Vietnamese restaurant. This incident highlights the bizarre and often unhygienic practices some travelers engage in, knowingly or unknowingly. Rotten fish infested with live maggots is not only a public health hazard, but also a potential biosecurity risk. Customs officers must remain vigilant to prevent such items from entering the country, as they could introduce pests or diseases that harm local agriculture and wildlife. For this traveler, the consequences went beyond embarrassment. Her contaminated seafood was seized and destroyed, leaving her with more than just ruined travel plans. She also faced fines and scrutiny. Number 7. Live exotic animals, including a dead baby kangaroo. At Bengaluru Airport in India, customs officers were going about their routine inspections when they flagged a passenger arriving from Bangkok. His 2 trolley bags looked ordinary, but something about the weight and how they were packed raised suspicions. Officers decided to take a closer look. What they found inside left them both shocked and appalled. As the bags were opened, the officers uncovered 234 wild animals crammed inside. These were no ordinary animals. They included snakes, lizards, and even rare species like marmosets, chameleons, and albino frogs. But the most heartbreaking discovery among the writhing creatures was the lifeless body of a dead baby kangaroo. It had been stuffed into the luggage alongside the other animals, likely unable to survive the harsh conditions of the journey. The animals were packed in small, cramped containers, with little to no ventilation. Some were stuffed into plastic boxes, while others were tied inside cloth bags. Many of the animals were visibly distressed, dehydrated, and on the brink of death. The conditions were horrific, and it was clear that the smuggler had little regard for their welfare. The discovery raised serious concerns about how these creatures had been transported and what their fate would have been if they had made it to their destination. Wildlife trafficking is a growing problem, and this case was a glaring example of the cruelty involved. The animals in the man's luggage were likely destined for the illegal exotic pet trade. Rare species like marmosets and chameleons are highly sought after by collectors, and smugglers often exploit this demand for profit. However, the trade takes a devastating toll on the animals themselves. Many do not survive the journey, and those that do often face poor living conditions or even death in captivity. The smuggler had not declared the animals, nor did he have the proper permits for their transport. This made it clear that he was part of an illegal operation. The officers confiscated the animals immediately and handed them over to wildlife authorities for care and rehabilitation. Unfortunately, not all of them survived the ordeal. This incident highlights the urgent need to crack down on wildlife trafficking. It's not just a crime against the law, it's a crime against nature. Smuggling wild animals disrupts ecosystems, threatens endangered species, and inflicts unimaginable suffering on living beings. Thanks to the vigilance of customs officers, this smuggling attempt was stopped. However, it's a stark reminder of the cruelty that exists in the illegal wildlife trade and the ongoing fight to protect vulnerable species from exploitation. Number 6. Gold hidden in everyday items. At airports around the world, customs officers regularly encounter smugglers attempting to sneak gold across borders. Gold is one of the most commonly smuggled items because it is small, highly valuable, and easy to conceal. However, some smugglers go to extreme lengths to hide their contraband, using everyday items to disguise the precious metal. These methods can be highly creative, as shown by some shocking discoveries made by customs officers. One notable case occurred in Mumbai, where a passenger was stopped after their luggage was flagged for inspection. At first glance, everything seemed normal. However, when the officers examined a pair of slippers in the luggage, they discovered something unusual. The slippers were heavier than normal, leading the officers to take a closer look. Upon dismantling the slippers, they found gold bars carefully concealed in the soles. Each slipper contained 3 gold bars, weighing a total of 393 grams, worth an estimated 1.8 million rupees. The passenger had hoped to walk right through customs unnoticed, but the officer's keen instincts foiled the plan. Another creative attempt involved gold paste hidden in detergent packets. At Hyderabad Airport, a passenger arriving from Dubai was stopped based on a tip-off. His luggage contained several packets of detergent, but their weight seemed unusual. When the officers opened the packets, they found gold in paste form mixed with the detergent powder. The total weight of the smuggled gold was nearly 2 kilograms, worth over 11.8 million rupees. This method of disguising gold as a household product has become increasingly common, as it can sometimes slip past regular scanning equipment. In another bizarre case, customs officers in Chennai discovered gold hidden in wedding invitations. The invitations, which were beautifully designed and appeared harmless, were unusually heavy upon closer inspection. Officers tore apart the decorative layers of the cards and found thin strips of gold hidden inside. Smugglers had hoped that the sentimental nature of wedding invitations would prevent officers from suspecting foul play, but the attempt was quickly detected. One of the most unusual discoveries occurred in Bengaluru, where a passenger tried to smuggle gold bars inside a hair grooming kit. The kit appeared ordinary on the surface, but it was unusually heavy. Officers dismantled the kit and found that its handle and interior parts were made entirely of solid gold, cleverly hidden beneath paint and beads. These cases highlight the ingenuity of smugglers and the persistence of customs officers. From slippers to detergent to wedding cards, smugglers are finding increasingly creative methods to transport gold illegally. However, vigilant officers continue to uncover these schemes, ensuring that such attempts are stopped before the contraband reaches its destination.
La Policía Nacional a través de la Dirección de
The National Police through the anti-narc.
Number 5. Drugs hidden in a fake baby bump. At an airport in South America, customs officers were conducting routine checks when they noticed a woman who appeared to be heavily pregnant. She was traveling alone and seemed nervous, which immediately drew their attention. While pregnant women are not often the focus of suspicion, something about her behavior didn't sit right. Officers decided to conduct a closer inspection, and what they discovered left them stunned. The woman was asked routine questions about her trip. She claimed she was 7 months pregnant and traveling to meet her husband. Her story seemed plausible, but her discomfort during questioning raised red flags. As the officers observed her closely, they noticed her baby bump didn't move naturally. Additionally, her clothes around the bump seemed unusually tight, as if they were holding something firmly in place. The customs officers asked her to step aside for further inspection. They explained that they needed to check her for her own safety. After much hesitation, the woman finally agreed. When they gently pressed on the baby bump, it felt firm and unnatural, nothing like the soft, organic feel of a pregnant belly. This was enough to warrant a search. The officers requested she remove the bump. Reluctantly, the woman unfastened the contraption, revealing it was a fake baby bump made of silicone. Inside the hollow space, customs officers found 2 kilograms of cocaine tightly wrapped in plastic bags. The cocaine was packed to fit perfectly within the fake bump and had been strapped securely to her body to avoid detection. The discovery was shocking. The fake pregnancy was an elaborate ruse designed to take advantage of the assumption that pregnant women are less likely to be involved in criminal activities. Smugglers often rely on stereotypes to avoid scrutiny, but this time, the plan backfired. The woman was immediately taken into custody, and the cocaine, valued at over $100,000, was seized. During questioning, she admitted that she had been promised a significant amount of money to transport the drugs. She claimed she was coerced into the operation and that the fake bump had been provided to her by the drug cartel she was working for. This case highlights the extreme lengths drug traffickers will go to in order to evade detection. Using a fake pregnancy as a cover is not only deceitful, but also showcases how smugglers exploit vulnerable individuals to carry out their illegal activities. Thanks to the vigilance and instincts of customs officers, this smuggling attempt was stopped before the drugs could reach their destination. The woman now faces serious legal consequences, and authorities are continuing their investigation to dismantle the cartel behind the operation. Number 4. Live tarantulas in a parcel. At Chennai's International Foreign Post Office, customs officers made a discovery that sent chills down their spines. During a routine inspection of a parcel from Poland, something strange caught their attention. On the surface, it seemed like an ordinary package, but the weight and contents didn't match the declared items. The officers decided to open it for a closer look. What they found inside was both shocking and unsettling. 107 live tarantulas, carefully packed in small containers. The tarantulas, each with their hairy legs and sharp movements, were alive and crawling. These spiders were no ordinary species. They were rare and exotic, protected under international wildlife laws. Some of the tarantulas were incredibly valuable, as they were listed under the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, CITES. This agreement protects endangered plants and animals from illegal trading, making these spiders a prime target for smugglers looking to profit from the lucrative exotic pet market. The tarantulas were packed in a way that would allow them to survive the journey. Each spider was placed in a small, air-permeable plastic container. The containers were then stacked and cushioned to prevent movement during transit. The parcel's sender had labeled it as harmless goods, but the officers were trained to spot inconsistencies. The spiders were alive, but many showed signs of stress due to the poor conditions of transport. This case raised serious questions. Who was behind this attempt to smuggle such a large number of tarantulas, and what was their intended destination? These spiders are highly sought after by collectors and enthusiasts, especially in countries where owning exotic animals is considered a status symbol. Some species of tarantulas can fetch thousands of dollars on the black market, making them a profitable but illegal trade item. However, transporting them in such conditions not only endangers the animals, but also violates strict international and local wildlife protection laws. The parcel was seized under the Customs Act, and the tarantulas were handed over to wildlife authorities for proper care. Specialists were called in to identify the species and assess their health. The authorities also launched an investigation to trace the sender and recipient of the parcel. This alarming discovery highlights the growing issue of wildlife trafficking. Smugglers often exploit the lack of awareness and resources in certain regions to transport endangered animals illegally. Customs officers at Chennai deserve credit for their vigilance in stopping this shipment. Without their intervention, these tarantulas would have disappeared into the illegal pet trade, contributing to the exploitation of vulnerable species. This case serves as a reminder of the importance of protecting wildlife and enforcing strict regulations to combat trafficking.
Scanners showed foreign objects hidden in their big hairstyles. Authorities say the women were detained and submitted to voluntary scanning, where the images showed irregularities. Video of one of those searches was made.
Customs officers at Bangkok's Suvarnabhumi airport were conducting routine checks when a South African woman caught their attention. Her calm demeanor and stylish appearance didn't raise any alarms at first, but as she approached the security checkpoint, officers noticed her dreadlocks were unusually thick and bulky. This subtle detail, paired with her nervous body language, prompted the officers to take a closer look. The woman was asked to step aside for a secondary inspection. She claimed she was visiting Thailand for a vacation and insisted she had nothing to hide. However, her unease made officers suspicious. They carefully examined her belongings but found nothing unusual in her luggage. It wasn't until they focused on her hair that the truth began to unravel. To the officers' surprise, her dreadlocks were not just a fashion statement. They were being used as a hiding spot for smuggled cocaine. Each lock had been carefully hollowed out and filled with packages of cocaine, which were then resealed to look completely natural. This method of smuggling was incredibly creative, as the hidden drugs were nearly impossible to detect without a thorough inspection. The officers explained their concerns to the woman and asked for her cooperation. They began cutting off sections of her dreadlocks, carefully unraveling and untwisting them. Inside, they found 1.5 kilograms of cocaine, tightly packed into small plastic bags. The drugs were hidden so well that even experienced customs officials were initially impressed by the ingenuity of the smuggling attempt. The woman eventually admitted that she had been paid a significant amount of money to transport the drugs to Thailand. She claimed she was struggling financially and had been recruited by a drug cartel back in South Africa. According to her, the cartel provided the fake dreadlocks and trained her on how to wear them convincingly. She had hoped the unusual hiding spot would help her avoid detection, but the officer's sharp instincts foiled her plan. This case highlights the extreme lengths smugglers will go to in order to evade law enforcement. Using dreadlocks as a hiding spot for drugs is not only creative, but also dangerous. Transporting drugs in this manner puts the carrier at significant risk, both physically and legally. If caught, smugglers face severe penalties, including long prison sentences. Thanks to the vigilance of the customs officers, this smuggling attempt was stopped. The cocaine, valued at over $100,000, was confiscated, and the woman was arrested on the spot. She now faces serious charges under Thailand's strict drug trafficking laws, which carry harsh penalties, including life imprisonment. This case serves as a reminder of the ongoing war against drug trafficking and the innovative methods that smugglers use. It also underscores the critical role that customs officers play in keeping illegal substances from entering their countries. Their vigilance and attention to detail continue to be the first line of defense against the global drug trade. Number 2. Blood-dripping luggage containing raw meat. At an airport security checkpoint, a customs officer noticed something unusual about a passenger's luggage. The bag had an unpleasant odor, and as it was placed on the conveyor belt for scanning, blood began dripping from the bottom. This immediately raised alarms. The officer flagged the bag for further inspection, suspecting the passenger might be trying to smuggle something dangerous or illegal. The passenger, when questioned, insisted the bag contained only food items, specifically frozen meat and fish. However, the dripping blood told a different story. As the officer unzipped the bag, the smell of rotting meat became overwhelming. Inside, they found plastic bags filled with raw meat and seafood, some of which were already decomposing. Shockingly, maggots were crawling inside some of the sealed bags, and a few had even managed to escape, wriggling around the luggage and onto the floor. The passenger claimed the meat was meant as a gift for relatives in the destination country. However, transporting raw and perishable food, especially in such poor conditions, posed serious health risks. The officers were concerned about the potential for contamination and the spread of diseases. Raw meat and seafood are classified as high-risk biosecurity items, as they can introduce harmful bacteria, parasites, or diseases into a country's ecosystem. Upon closer examination, the officers discovered that the meat wasn't properly frozen or packed in a way to maintain safety during transport. Some of the bags were leaking fluids, further contaminating the luggage. The seafood, including fish and shellfish, was also in an advanced state of decomposition. The passenger's explanation that these were personal food items did little to alleviate the customs officer's concerns. The officers immediately confiscated the entire contents of the bag, citing both biosecurity laws and public health risks. In many countries, including Australia, the United States, and parts of Europe, strict regulations govern the importation of raw meat, seafood, and other perishable items. Travelers are required to declare such items upon arrival, and failure to do so can result in hefty fines or even criminal charges. In this case, the passenger not only lost their gift, but also faced a fine for failing to declare the items and for attempting to transport contaminated goods. The confiscated meat and seafood were promptly destroyed to prevent any potential biosecurity breaches. This incident highlights the importance of customs regulations designed to protect public health and ecosystems. While the passenger may have intended no harm, their negligence in handling and transporting perishable goods could have had serious consequences. For customs officers, vigilance is key, and cases like this serve as a reminder of the hidden dangers lurking in everyday items that travelers carry.
And what do you mean live snakes? Where? In her checked-in baggage? All right.
Number 1. Rare lizards and monkeys smuggled as snake food. International Airport were in for a shocking revelation during a routine inspection. A suspicious bag belonging to a passenger arriving from Kuala Lumpur was flagged for further examination. The scanner had picked up unusual movements inside, and what the officers found when they unzipped the luggage was horrifying. Rare lizards and monkeys were crammed into tiny containers, barely alive, and allegedly being smuggled as food for exotic snakes. Inside the bag, officers discovered 13 rare lizards, including chameleons and bobtail lizards, alongside a few small monkeys. The animals were tightly packed in poorly ventilated containers, visibly distressed and dehydrated. Some of the lizards and monkeys appeared too weak to move, having endured terrible conditions during the flight. The passenger claimed they were snake food, but the situation revealed a much darker reality. These animals were victims of illegal wildlife trafficking. Investigations soon revealed that these animals were not just ordinary species, they were rare and protected under international wildlife trade laws. Smugglers often target rare creatures like chameleons for the exotic pet trade, as they are highly sought after by collectors across the world. Additionally, some animals are used to feed other exotic creatures kept illegally, such as venomous snakes or large reptiles. Wildlife trafficking operations like this are cruel and dangerous.
Now discovered that there are 9 boxes in total. They all appear to be coming from the same sender going out of the country to Japan.
Many animals don't survive the journey due to the inhumane conditions in which they are transported.
1 bearded dragon and 1 eastern long-necked turtle, and we're just going to put them into our quarantine area here at the zoo.
These particular lizards and monkeys had been stuffed into containers with little to no food or water, and some were likely captured directly from their natural habitats. This practice not only threatens the survival of these species, but also disrupts ecosystems and spreads diseases. The customs officers acted quickly, confiscating the animals and handing them over to local wildlife authorities. Sadly, some of the animals were too weak to survive, while others were sent to rehabilitation centers to recover. The passenger was arrested under India's Wildlife Protection Act and now faces severe penalties for smuggling endangered species. This case underscores the tragic impact of wildlife smuggling and the lengths criminals go to for profit. Thanks to the vigilance of customs officers, this operation was stopped before the animals could be sold or used. However, the fight against wildlife trafficking remains an uphill battle, requiring stricter enforcement of laws and greater awareness to protect vulnerable species. Thanks for watching another episode. While you are still here, make sure to click the video on your screen for more quality content.